I feel like discipline is so controversial. But I think of it as all feelings are welcome, all behaviors are not. So if I had to sum it up, and I think we do think of discipline as punishment versus teaching, and it's teaching because it actually influences your growth and development. It's not just for my entertainment. Then your kids trust you a little bit more and the relationship is stronger. But I think the key with discipline is not being afraid of how our kids react to it and having the strength of purpose and belief that if they do have a negative reaction to it, we can love them all the way through it, but we're not going to change our minds about it. Because that's where it gets messy, is that if we're talking all about how important the relationship is, and then you have this limit that you set, like, this is my expectation of you, and your child doesn't like it. This simply like, I take the phone away at night or the iPad or whatever, and your child is freaking out about it, then you go, well, now I've messed with the relationship. And so I guess they're crying and I need to like get back in there. So, okay, I'll give you more time or whatever it is. And that's where we get confused. I think if parents really understood that feelings aren't dangerous, that kids aren't going to say thank you for the boundaries and limits that we set, and that we set them with the intention of physical and emotional safety about not just them, but other people. Like, we're not just raising kids in a vacuum. They have to move through the world and think about community and other humans. And so what's comfortable for them might not be thoughtful to other people. And so it's that balance between be there for yourself, but also not to the extent that you can't, that you're entitled and don't respect that there are other people in the world. I mean, there's 3 kind of parenting styles outside of neglectful, which is not, that's a whole other thing. But there's like the permissive, which is best friend parenting. And it is so sensitive and they do like you and you can play as many video games as you want and all that's great, except for you have nobody's steering the ship. And so it actually can lead to anxiety and depression and a sense that you are too responsible for things. And the other side of it is authoritarian, where it's fear-based and it's just rules. And it's just because I said so, but without the like, I know you really love doing this and I wouldn't stop you from doing it if I didn't know that it was better for your brain or whatever. So that's the middle path of like authoritative, where you're sensitive, but you stick with your limits and boundaries because you know that that's going to benefit your kids. Even when you have limits and rules, you want your kids to know, as you're describing your mom, that they have you. So if you do mess up, you can still go to them instead of being terrified. And so that's this weird thing where it's like, here are my expectations. Also, I want to name the fact that you're going to blow it sometimes. And I want to be the person you come to.
Yeah.
And that's something to say, not when they're struggling. And I think part of the reason why it's hard to get kids to open up is because we try to get in there when they're in the center of the struggle.
Yes.
Instead of like building the vocabulary and connection outside of it. So you have the conversations and you give the language when nobody's in the heat of the moment. So that when the heat of the moment comes, they already know that they can come to you. And you can just say to them, I can tell something's going on. I'm here whenever or if ever. And then just leave space. A lot of times doing something with a kid who's not opening up, like going for a drive even, so that you're not looking at each other, it's going to come up. But you want to just like put little tiny moments where you say, I'm askable, I'm tellable, and I'm not going to say anything. And one of the things that helps is that when your kids do tell you something, you say, thank you for telling me before you have any other reaction. And that may be your only reaction. And then you give them a little space. And then you say, is there anything I can do? With younger kids, you want to be, this is going to sound ridiculous if you don't think about animals this way, but I do. So tell me if it resonates. But you kind of want to be a dog. You're wagging your tail when you're excited to see them. You're always there and you're like really enthusiastic. And they need that. But then as they get older, imagine your 11 to 25-year-old self, you need to be a cat. So you're like you're there, you're always around. You're touching their feet. Like you're not overly on top of them. But if they're interested, they can come to you, but you're not going anywhere. So it's like, it's this safe thing where you're there for them, but it's not so intense. And then they have the opportunity to open up a little bit. And when they do, you don't pounce like a dog. You stay a cat who's like welcoming the information, but not, saying, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then, because you don't want your kids to think you can't handle my truth.
Yeah.
So you're not the person to tell.
Yeah. And I feel that's the hardest time to be the cat because you're scared about them getting involved in the worst stuff,
things.
like whether it's drugs or, addiction to social media or getting involved in the wrong circles. Like that's the age at which it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
And so, it's terrifying. So and they're getting a driver's license. They can drink now, as they get older. It's almost like those are the times where you want to be more hands-on.
And you are fit. That's why I say you're physically present. Like, I think toddlers and teenagers need you more present than anybody. But we think teenagers are like off on their own and whatever, but you're home. Like if they're going to a party, you're home to greet them and look into their eyes. So you don't need to ask if they've been drinking because you will know when you hug them and look in their eyes, and you can have a conversation in a different kind of way than if you're sort of like, I'm out, you're older, you take an Uber, don't drive drunk, I'll see you tomorrow. So I think your presence is important, but the sense that you're like kind of all over them verbally you have to pull back a little bit. And it's terrifying. But if you've cultivated the relationship and you've set the expectations from, about substances and social media and whatever, it's easier. But when something's really bothering them, what they need is to know that they don't have to explain it and they can just come to you and be sad. Attachment relationships are dynamic. So you aren't just like, it used to be, we used to think like you're either, you have a baby, you develop the secure attachment, it's like a bond and that's it. But we know now it's dynamic. And so if you have a 5-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 35-year-old, you can still grow that healthy attachment relationship. So you can change. Our job is not to fix, it's to be there. And that's what secure attachment is. Even in your adult relationships, it's like, who can sit with me through all of these experiences, through these feelings? Because the idea of being happy isn't really about always being happy. It's about knowing you can come back from whatever it is that you're going through and you will be happy again. And if our kids experience the range of things that come their way and they know that they have someone sort of sitting by their side, they end up in this relationship that is securely attached. And it's not like one and done. And if it didn't, that's the thing that I think is the trickiest, is feeling like I'm responsible for my child's constant happiness. I have to feel ashamed if I wasn't there for every moment or if I couldn't fix that feeling, which you can't, as you know.
Yeah.
And so the idea that you're just like in charge of raising a whole human being or more is really daunting. And we all kind of think everybody else knows. We don't know. But I think the key with discipline is not being afraid of how our kids react to it. But I think the key with discipline is not being afraid of how our kids react to it. Like, we're not just raising kids in a vacuum. Like, we're not just raising kids in a vacuum. And I think part of the reason why it's hard to get kids to open up is because we try to get in there when they're in the center of the struggle. And I think part of the reason why it's hard to get kids to open up is because we try to get in there when they're in the center of the struggle. And you can just say to them, I can tell something's going on. I'm here whenever or if ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then just leave space. And then you give them a little space. And then you say, is there anything I can do?
Mm-hmm.
And you can just say to them, I can tell something's going on. I'm here whenever or if ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then just leave space. And then you give them a little space. And then you say, is there anything I can do?
Mm-hmm.